All right. Good morning, everyone. We are streaming. We got our Make Our Monday count with Cody Davis now, but we also have a special guest on today. We got John Litz from Deconstructing Dreams. Most of my audience probably knows who Cody is. So, John, quickly introduce yourself and give us your backstory and where you're investing.
My name is John Litz. I invest in Reno, Nevada. I've been managing long term rentals for over 20 years, and I've recently gotten into short term rentals and been working with the city on getting ADU legislation passed for Reno.
Very, very nice. So, we'll dig into the ADU side. I know that's what you're really working on right now, and you have a big passion for short term rentals also. But yeah, we'll kind of our main topic we'll probably focus on first is there some news in Cody's area, and it's something that could be coming to a lot of markets out there. But I believe rent control has been implemented in your market, right, Cody?
It has, and it's not honestly that bad. It's about 7% plus CPIs up to 10%. And I don't raise my rents that much anyway per year. I try and get them where it's affordable for a tenant, and then modest bumps usually every other year. I could probably be more aggressive, but I prefer low turnover, and so it doesn't really affect me as an operator as of right now.
So I want to quickly touch on what how you kind of first answered it. You said it's not that bad, but are you saying you're looking at it from I guess, an investor or landlord standpoint? Because I think the big push is always that it's supposed to be beneficial for like renters or the tenants, right? So are you coming at it from an investor standpoint or the landlord standpoint?
Well, from ownership, the only people it's going to really hurt are the value add investors that are trying to go in and get the rents up. As an example, one of my first partnership deals I ever bought was on a multifamily building. The rents ranged from $0 to $380 a month. Someone could not go in today and raise the $380 rent to market. It would take you could never get it there. By the time you get it to 800, the market rent would be 1600. So you could literally never get it to where it needs to be, and that will kill a bunch of deals. But on the ownership side, because I already own properties that are mostly stabilized, it's okay. It also doesn't affect new construction. I believe it's 12 years since certificate of occupancy that there's no rent control. So it doesn't affect my new properties at all. And most of my old stuff is already stabilized. But if I wanted to go take on as an investor, a new project where the rent's really low, I probably would have to have my offer reflect a much lower price.
John, any thoughts? Is there rent control in your market right now currently?
I don't have any rent control here. I am kind of curious on what you're saying there, Cody. Does that mean if you had a turnover, you wouldn't be able to raise the rent to a market rent if it was a very low rent with the previous tenant?
It's not a matter of if it turns over. It's if I have a tenant, let's just say tenant A in this situation, that I bought a property and their rent is 500 and market rent's 1500. I would never go in as an owner and raise them to 1500. That would never make sense for me, and it would never make sense for the tenant. But similar to Dion, I'd try and find a place in the middle and ask them to come up with that number. He does the binder strategy.
Right.
So I can't do that now. I mean, if the tenant agrees to it and they say, well, I'm open to this, but legally speaking, I can't post a notice that's going to go more than $50. So I'd go from 500 to max 550. And then the year after that, it'd go to 605. So that's going to kill a whole bunch of deals. Now, if the tenant moves, I can't just give them a non-renewal for no reason in Washington. So like if they decide to move, now I can take that rent and I can remodel it and rent it out for 1500. But if they opt to stay, then it's never going to go to market rent.
So you could go and do a non-renewal for doing renovations and improving the property and then relist it for the market rate rent.
Some of my lawyers have told me no. So
Okay.
that's not a valid reason. And you only know what you've been told, but that's what I've been told, and so I'm not going to push that envelope. What I have done though to help accommodate this is I've moved tenants from the unit that they're in, where the rent maybe is a little low. I've offered them a renovated unit for a slightly discounted price. So if the rent was 700 for them before, I'll offer them a renovated unit that would rent for 1,000 for maybe 925 or 900. So I get them to move into a different unit. I get closer to market, and then I can redo their unit and re-rent it for a premium. So I'm adding value to the tenant to get around that, because I'm relocating them to something that's better than what they have for in their eyes, a deal. And for me, I give up a little bit of lost revenue. However, I make it up when I get their unit to market.
Very cool. Like I said, John is also streaming on his channel, so if you can go quickly jump over there, hit the like, hit the subscribe. You can always jump back here. Cody is also streaming on his, and I just looked. So this is Cody's first time doing a live stream on his. So we gotta. I can't comment on yours, so we gotta work. Next time we gotta change the settings to where people can comment on your feed, I believe, because I looked at it and. But yeah, all work in progress. So, but if you can, I'm sure you guys all subscribe to Cody already. But if not, go jump over there, subscribe. We're all streaming on each other's platform. I see Nick's here. Yeah, go check out Nick's channel also too. Bitcoin is making a lot of moves. He's putting out a lot of good daily content on Bitcoin. So go check out Nick at Lead Pray Hodl. But yeah, I think rent control is something that talked about quite a bit. And the funny thing is, I tried to find videos where saying rent control is makes sense or beneficial, and it's very difficult to find any video on YouTube that actually takes that standpoint. So the politicians like to push rent control, but when you're trying to look up any economists or people talking about it, it's pretty much it's gonna fail to the most part. I mean, that's the consensus that I see out there from a lot of videos and reports that I'm looking at. So like you said, Cody, it's not gonna, you're not looking at it as something where you're gonna be looking for a new market. You're gonna be pivoting. You just basically want some clarity and then how you're gonna kind of deal with it in your market. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah, and there's a bunch of whiners on Facebook. In my friend group too. They're just like, well, Washington is so hard, and it's this and it's that. Yet they forget how much money they've made in Washington State. Like they just want to complain about things, but then they're going to reallocate all their money to a market that doesn't have this regulation, but also doesn't appreciate. It's kind of silly. So it is difficult, but there's a lot of opportunity here, and I'm not going to let it kill the business.
And talking about dealing with maybe legislation, politics, we're talking about rent control in Cody's market. But I know, John, you're also kind of dealing with some sort of legislation in your area also, right?
Yes, we've been working on doing the ADU legislation for about 2 years. The city put out surveys and had neighborhood advisory boards and all types of comments, public feedback, things of that nature with planning commission meetings, city council meetings. I've attended most of those, written all kinds of letters to them and given them advice. And the state put through AB 396, which basically is forcing any large population areas for counties and cities to have their own ordinance, or ADUs would be legalized through the states. Uh, Now, that being as Reno already had been working on this, it was a pretty simple thing for them to just go ahead and make sure they complied with AB 396. But they went through and got some more information, and they went ahead and passed that on October 8th this year. So we did get a good part of it, where they'd been fighting for against short-term rentals the entire time, but now at the last minute they decided to allow that as a use that you could do for an ADU. So that's a great thing. However, watching some of the stuff from Derek, that ADU guy. Um, a lot of places have the same restrictions that caused problems for parking that Reno has put in, and Reno is requiring one off-street parking spot per ADU, and they only allow one per lot. So, that doesn't sound like it's unreasonable until you get to the logistics of it, which means that most people are going to have to put that additional spot right next to their own existing driveway, and that triggers an American with Disabilities violation for federal laws. So basically, you end up having to rip out most of your existing driveway so that you can get the slopes and angles correct for making sure you're compliant for that. So that could literally double the cost of what your ADU would cost. They were hoping to make illegal ADUs part of this so that they could get into compliance, but I don't see anybody actually applying for that because of the huge amount of cost that it would cost.
Yeah, that's wild because I know even Justin Camber, who was on a couple weeks ago talking about his dad who's in his area. Yeah, I forget what the reason was, but he's basically having to put in a sidewalk to nowhere by his property. So he's building this sidewalk, and there's really nowhere it goes to. But this is not financial advice, but from Nick Lee Prejado, he says 111K would be a great Bitcoin price to buy, in my opinion. But like I said, go check out Nick's page. He's putting on a lot of great content in there on Bitcoin and daily updates. But Jen does say, Cody, that's a good idea to swap units. Have you had any luck with people taking that offer for discounted renovated unit?
Absolutely. And something else that I've done on a similar token, I actually posted a video on this tomorrow, streamed it from my Sixplex. But what I do is I've bought vacant buildings for cheap, renovate it really quick, and then I actually reach out to all of my tenants at higher occupancy buildings and try and get them to move because that forces the value up really quickly. And so I've done that too.
Very nice. Yep. So, like, if people don't know, Cody puts out a new video every Tuesday and Thursday, I believe. Is there a set time they always come out, Cody?
3 p.m. unless I'm getting behind, then it comes out when it comes out. But it is on that day.
Yep. Every Tuesday, Thursday. And like I mentioned too, me and Cody are doing regular live streaming on Mondays. I'll also be doing regular on Tuesdays now with Brandon Potts, B2R Invest. And it's probably setting up something with Justin Camera, but stay tuned for that. Let's see. Anything else on the, I guess, rent control? Like you said, you I guess a lot of people in your friend group or chats, you said, have different takes on it.
Yeah, they do. And a lot of them, you look at the history of like forever, and all they do is complain online about one thing or another. So that also will reflect what they're complaining about with all the legislation. It's always going to be difficult, right? I mean, no matter what, you go one place, it's going to be very restrictive, but things get expensive because most people can't compete, and so there's limited supply. And so that helps landlords in this state. And then they're like, well, I want to go over here, but then their stuff doesn't appreciate a whole lot unless they get a screaming deal on the buy. But it's easier. So I mean, I prefer where it's more difficult, but you make more money. And a lot of people have a lot of things to complain about, and so I think that's why we're seeing a lot of complaining.
Yeah, talking about, so Nick is in California. He's laughing about the sidewalk to nowhere, but he says, yeah, regulations are crazy. California is putting in a law for mandatory appliances in rentals for tenants. Huh. Not sure which ones yet are mandatory. Huh. Have you guys heard of anything like that coming to your areas for appliances?
We
No.
typically do the refrigerators for the tenant, and if it's equipped with a dishwasher, of course that'll go in. But we don't typically do the washer and dryer for the clothes.
Cody, how do you handle appliances in your units?
Well, the basic stuff like a stove, oven, refrigerator, that's always provided.
Yeah.
But A lot of my apartment buildings have laundry rooms, not they don't have in-unit laundry. So like, I provide them in the laundry room, but I just lease them from a company. I don't own them. It's not worth it.
That's right. I think we touched on that the last time. So maybe go over that. So you prefer or you lease the washer dryers, correct?
I do. Yeah, I lease them from a company. They handle it because I own small apartments. I don't own big stuff. If I own bigger properties, then yeah, I'd buy them. But it just makes sense to lease it, not worry about the maintenance. And I don't get as much money, but the washer dryer for those sized apartment buildings isn't about the money. It's about the tenant retention. So
And
it's
I
I do
believe
it.
also part of your reason too is they're used or secondhand, right? So they're in, and also the maintenance is taken care of by the company you're leasing it from.
Right. And I don't care if I don't make a dollar. I don't have to pay any money. It just comes out of the revenue that they generate. But I just have it for retention because it's where I own a lot of older buildings don't have laundry rooms. So if I have a laundry room, I'm better than they are as far as a tenant rental perspective.
Oh, great question by Jen. So Jen's also in California. I see Casey, who's also in California, who's been going back and forth about if he should relocate. But Jen says, Cody, if you were in growth mode today, would you still stay in Washington? Asking because we are in California and want to stay, but can't make sense of the numbers wise.
I'm still buying a bunch of stuff. To be fair, I'm going back into growth mode because I stabilized the majority of my properties and a lot of them are optimized. So I'm starting to buy more. I just bought a sixplex. Before that, I just bought an eightplex. I'm working on buying some more properties, have offers out on a 20 unit, a 9 unit, and some other things here and there, like a 12. But there's not a whole bunch more to buy specifically in Grant County, from what I found. As far as mid-sized to small multifamily, there's really not a lot. I've talked to most of the owners. I know which ones are not selling. They just long-term hold people. And I bought and flipped like 100 something units, and so yeah. To answer the question, if I was in growth mode right now, which I am, I would still buy in Washington, and I'm continuing to buy here. There's just I have to go to a new county to find the opportunity.
Jeff, thanks for tuning in. He's in York, Pennsylvania, but he says, how much rent do you collect for washer dry and what is lease cost?
On my 13 unit, I get about 100 and something bucks a month. Just varies on the month, 100 to 150 bucks a month after the split. And the split is just 50-50, so I get 50% of the profit.
Also, I want to say Jeff does have a YouTube channel with some cool videos out there. So go check out his channel. There is his channel in the chat. So if you haven't, go subscribe there. He's also a big part of the school community. Jen's asking, hey, John, how are your Airbnb guests so far? Hopefully, no difficult guests. I know she was dealing with some difficulty ones.
Well, for the most part, the guests are fantastic. Usually, I don't have any issues with them, but every once in a while, you do get that challenging guest. They haven't had any lately. I mean, there's times when maybe you don't get the 5-star review, but it's a 4-star just because they don't like giving 5-star kind of stuff. But generally, I get all 5 stars. Everybody's very happy. I've been making good profit on it. I'm actually shutting down for a week this month to do demo for the downstairs to start doing an ADU, and the build will start first week in November.
And I think a lot of people know that John had detached retina and some eye issues. So maybe you can give everyone a quick update on how you are and maybe how you're feeling right now.
So I woke up one morning and I couldn't see out of half my eye. It was all black. And I went to the ER, and by the time they got done with their examination, I had a sliver that I could see out of the top of my eye. The rest of it was black. I was fortunate enough that a retina surgeon was available on a Sunday morning, and we started doing surgeries. And after 4 surgeries, I can see again. It's not as good as it was, but it's certainly much better than being black. Um, I have one more surgery left for cataracts, and then I get to do new glasses. And the doctor said that I actually improved better than most of his patients do. I could actually drive if I lost my good eye and I just had my eye that had the detached retina, I would still be legal to drive. So it's doing well. The healing process is pretty well done. We still got plenty more checkups to make sure it doesn't start coming off again, but things are really pretty good. So I feel very blessed to be able to see again.
All right, good update. I think everyone is glad to hear that. Glad you're feeling better. I'm sure none of my text messages helped you in any way to recover, but Chris Webb does say, speaking about regulations, did you see how the Amish rebuilt a sawmill in North Carolina in like 8 days after a fire? I think they are not required to adhere to regulations. In this case, I wonder if they partner. And then Andy follows up with that saying, yeah, that's crazy. Uh, the government wants to bottle feed everyone, and yet everyone doesn't see how the regulations really affect them. Yeah, very true. Um, let's see there. Oh, here's one. Ike, if you are limited on revenue growth through rent control, can you stop providing amenities such as laundry? I tried to add it where I'm at, but it's because I can get better tenants, I feel like, when I add it.
That's a downward spiral. So, I mean, if you start degrading the property's amenities, it's not going to get better because then you're going to get specific tenants that aren't going to want to be there. And it shifts a little bit. And it's kind of like shifting your baseline with business ethics. If you shift it over once, you draw a new line in the sand, that's your new baseline. Well, what's one more step? When it would have been multiple steps in the wrong direction from where you originally started. So I wouldn't start to cannibalize the property like that. I would do your best to maintain your margin, but as your margin whittles, over time, you're going to pay down your debt and it will get better. But don't sacrifice the quality of the asset to the extent that you can keep it because it's hard to get it back.
John, any thoughts on that?
I would think it would be very similar to when people are looking at the locality of the property. You know, you're concerned about not being in war zones. Well, don't turn your property into a lower grade property because that attracts those lower end tenants that you probably don't want to deal with because they're higher eviction, more problems with damage, more problems with evictions. All of those types of issues come up with a lower quality tenant. So I always want to try to get the best quality tenant, which means having a good quality property.
Chris Webb is asking, Cody, you mentioned that you talk to the owners. How would you handle this with a W 2? I do have a flexible schedule, but I can only take so many breaks in the workday. Also, they're a type of owner you would focus on, older, someone who's looking to grow and might want to sell some assets.
There's no typical owner. I mean, someone sees me at the grocery store, they're not going to think that I've owned hundreds of rentals, right? I mean, but if they saw my name on a list and they were an investor, they'd still call it, right? So I wouldn't target someone based on their age. I mean, there's people that are 60 that own less assets than people that are 20. And it's just how it plays out sometimes. So call everybody for one, and you have a flexible schedule. You just shared that. Even if you didn't have a flexible schedule, call when you can. Don't call them at 6 a.m., but if you have a lunch break, make some calls, leave some voicemails. You could send a text. I've started meetings that have come just from a cold email, found their email online. Not all those work, but it can work, and it has worked for me. You got to do what you can. A lot of those people had W-2s for a long time as well, so you'll have a relatable point that I didn't.
Let's see. Oh, Flavio has a question. He's coming from one of your guys' channels who's paired. So it says, Flavio, are you will be involved on the new development or you will hire a general contractor? Mm, is that? I think
I'll
that's
be
for you, Cody. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm building a 7 unit and a 4 unit right now. I'm hiring a GC. I'm going to be as involved as I can, though. I'd like to learn what goes into it because you don't know until you do. So I'm going to be asking a lot of questions and we'll see how it goes.
I've been GC on plenty of projects myself. On building my ADU, I actually have to hire a GC. Part of the conditions of doing ADU here is you have to have a GC. So I actually was fortunate enough to find out somebody that I've known since they were a kid started doing that. So I'm partnering with her, and she's actually very good with having a lot of networking for different subcontractors and what have you. So we were able to do a lot of fun things, and found, like the epoxy bar that I'm going to put in for the river bar. That's going to be a fun project there. So we found that it's very expensive, but I think it's going to make a difference for bringing in short-term rental guests.
They'll stand
Uh,
out.
Looks like Flavio has a follow-up. Can you document step by step on that project, new construction for newbies like me?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If I was getting started again and your market at Grandview, I'd try and buy them. If it were me, I'd buy a multifamily building that has extra land and then get paid to wait while you figure out the permit process. I just bought a property that's vacant dirt. And so the way I looked at it is, okay, what's the property cost? What's going to be my build costs, my holding costs? Who's going to fund the deal? So which lender is going to back it? What do they need from me? And who's going to build it? And it's just, you got to go through the steps. It's like, okay, well, where is it? What are we building? Who's funding it? Who's building it? How long is it going to take? What's the lease up? And then how am I getting out of the construction debt? I mean, those are your big pieces, at least from my experience.
Jen is asking, Cody, rent has been soft lately, and we have a few vacant units in our quads for months. Any advice on how to get units filled?
Yeah, I actually had to fire my property manager on a building. They do great on a bunch of stuff, but I had to fire them on one of my Oreos joined. I had to fire them on one of my buildings because they just couldn't get it leased, and I filled the unit in 3 days. What I have found is that Facebook is your friend, Facebook Marketplace. You have to be very responsive there, though, because people are just scrolling. They're going to find somewhere else. I chat with the Goodwill, Hope Source, and sometimes, not as much, Housing Authority. Goodwill has a lot of programs where they will pay moving costs plus a little bit in advance for people that are getting off their feet. I also take a lot more chances than some landlords, but there's a lot of people that maybe they've just gone through a divorce and their credit is shot. And they've got a stable income, but they're trying to get their first place secured. Well, I've worked it out with Goodwill where they will pay their moving costs. Also, there's a lot of people on fixed income where they make, and your market's going to be different, of course, but they make 1,800 and the rent is $800. They're not going to qualify conventionally. So I work with them and their housing rep at one of those programs, and we get them on auto pay. And does that mean they're going to pay forever? No, but I get first, last, and deposit upfront from the program, and then we put them on auto pay. And I I've had over a 90% success rate with that, whereas my manager wouldn't place that tenant. Those are just good people that don't have a lot of money.
John, anything to add I guess your get vacant units filled before you answer Jen's question?
I think that lumberjack landlords got some very good ad writing advice. So if you've taken any of his courses or followed some of his material. He's got great advice on that kind of stuff. Um, I like to have very very definite criteria that I'm going to look at them from. That way, everybody gets evaluated evenly, and I don't have any issues with somebody trying to say some kind of discrimination or anything like that. Stay out of those legal issues. But I like to try to do a 620 credit score, no evictions, and about 2.5 times the rent. If I go any more stringent than that, it doesn't really get me very many hits in my area. So, just in an effort to get a few more applicants that actually qualify, I try to have it a little bit lower than some of the advice that Dion or Lumberjack has put out there. But it's just sometimes you get a lot of applicants, sometimes you don't. Um, Facebook Marketplace, I do place an ad there, but that is the most frustrating people to deal with because everybody just wants to hit that button. Is it available? Is it available? So that's a little frustrating from that standpoint because most of those people won't even respond when you respond back to them.
Jen's asking, John, what's the next amenity you're thinking about to offer at your Airbnb? Or what is the next update you're thinking about doing to make yours stand out? So, for those that don't know, like I said, on John's channel, Deconstructing Dreams, he has some cool videos about his Airbnb, his short-term rental. Also, you using the VR goggles, right?
I did use a VR goggles. I created a logo for the 3 bedroom, 2 bath that's upstairs and painted that on a retaining wall using the VR goggles. So that turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to. And now that ADUs are legal, I will be building an ADU in the downstairs area that's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And both of them, I like to do themes. I know a lot of people don't really like the theme type of idea because some people do it kind of cheesy. I try to do a little different level of that, and it seems to be working very well for me. So the downstairs is going to be themed out. It's going to have an epoxy river bar. The paint scheme in there is going to be black, and there's going to be a lot of wood everywhere. So the flooring, the cabinets, the countertops, a lot of wood everywhere to warm it up, and tons of lighting to try to brighten it up more so it doesn't look quite as much like a dungeon.
Where do they go if they want to book your unit? Is it on your YouTube page? Can they get to your link there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so there's John's channel also. So like I said, if you haven't, go subscribe there. But Chris Webb says, Cody, a great answer. I had to incorporate a Google Voice number for a rental, and I have started texting through the website while I work throughout the day. I got the script from your earlier videos.
Nice.
Big Andy says, what we've seen with our local Amish is some city councils are starting to pass resolutions not allowing the Amish to work inside corporation limit. So contractors are hiring them as subcontractors. Wow. Yep. Andy also says, yeah, so Brandon from B2R, latest video talked about getting your property taxes lowered with county, and I've heard Amish do same thing by holding church at various properties, supposedly for property tax purposes. Interesting. So, like I said, Brandon will be on tomorrow. I'm doing a Tuesday lives with him also. Now that's going to be a regular thing, so I can also bring that up. So if you have more questions on that, but have you done anything like that, John or Cody, trying to, I guess, contest your property taxes?
I've contested my property taxes and I've got them lowered before. I wouldn't open a church at my 39 unit, but I have gotten my property taxes lowered when I thought they were outrageous. I got them cut in half.
John?
I go to church, but I wouldn't hold church in one of my properties. And I have not contested my taxes. They've all seemed to be fairly reasonable for the area.
Chris is asking, I think the idea of creative tenants is excellent, but I also have similar fears about state regulation. Cody, is the creative tenant structure based on your experience or do you talk with your lawyer?
If you're referring to just shuffling tenants around, it's just an offer. I know almost all of my tenants, which is hard to do with over 100 of them, but and maybe not the best practice. But a lot of them know me, and a lot of them will stick around at my properties because I take care of the properties and make them nicer. If they need something, I get it fixed, and so it's an easy offer, and I don't just give it to one person. I'm not singling people out, but I offer like, hey, if you want this, this is coming available. It's in this location. It's going to be this price. It's a little bigger, or it's a little nicer, or it's got a backyard, or it has washer dryer and unit, whatever the upgrade is for their lifestyle. And I'm doing that right now. And I offered it to a bunch of people. Someone's moving from one of my Moses Lake rentals that has no washer dryer on site, from a 450 square foot unit to a 600 square foot unit with washer dryer in unit, with a fenced backyard, with off street park. It's a lot better than their current setup, and they're the first person to accept it.
Flavio's asking, Cody, how many calls do you get from tenant a week? Do you answer on Sundays? Oh.
I answer every day. When you're retired, every day is a whatever day you want it to be. However, I don't get a whole lot. Usually I get texts. People nowadays like to text more than call. I mean, I get calls from people that are some years my senior, but a lot of my tenants that are closer to my age, they usually just text. They're like, hey, this is going on. I got a video a few days ago at one of my new rentals, and there was water coming through the light in their kitchen because their bathtub was leaking. And they're like, hey, it's raining in my unit. Can you get someone over here? Like, yes, thumbs up. And then someone went over and fixed it. But yeah, people like to text, and it doesn't matter what day it is. If you have a problem, you have a problem.
Yeah, I've been on call for 24/7 for like over 20 years now. So I don't have days off when it comes to problems at the properties.
Joe V says, yeah, I hate text messaging. Yes, Joe V calls me all the time. And sorry, Joe, I don't ever pick up half the time when you call me. No, but I'll call you back usually. But then you don't answer when I call you. But kind of, I kind of want to go back to maybe what Chris did kind of touch on. He uses like a Google, I think, number. He says, "Is that
Google
something you do?"
Voice.
Yeah, is that something you do, Cody? Or
Yeah, because I've got a 253 number. And if I message someone with a 253, which for people that are out of area, that makes no sense, but that's a Tacoma number. And Tacoma is 3 hours from where I live. So I got a Google Voice number because it's free and it's a 509 number. I picked the easiest one to memorize, and that's what I put on my rental listings. I don't care if tenants have my other number. They're both my number, but it just makes more business sense to have a local number. And I can get calls. My only recommendation for people that have a Google Voice, please do it, because I hate calling Google Voice, is switch the toggle that says, this is Google Voice, please state your name. You can toggle that off with one button, and it just rings in like a normal phone. It is so much better.
all right, great advice. So I'm not sure if Joe, you do that, but Joe says he uses Google Voice for all my contracting work. Okay, interesting. Let's see. What else? I did have a question for John. What the heck was it? What was it about? It was about your short-term rental. Dang, I forgot what it was. Oh no, I was going to talk about the government being shut down. I know you're not directly working for the federal government, right? But do you see people around you kind of this is why you kind of like trying to promote financial literacy and financial independence and whatnot?
I actually do work for the federal government for the Department of Defense. That's who signs my paychecks. I work for Sierra Army Depot, but fortunately, we have other customers besides just the Army, so our base is not shut down. It's not furloughed. My cousin is a helicopter pilot, and he is actually furloughed. And as as far as I don't really care where you work or what industry you're in. I think that putting together some alternative ways of making money through investments is good financial advice for anyone. Obviously, it's worked really well for Cody. He didn't even have to really work much in his entire life, so he's doing great. He does work in a different fashion with getting all the rentals and that type of stuff. I mean, mad respect to you, Cody. I mean, holy crap! I wish I had all of the knowledge and the ability to do that stuff when I was at your age. You've done fantastic. It's very commendable. Um, Mark, you're doing really well with it. I mean, you're even thinking about retiring because of your shoulder surgeries and what have you. And I think that'd be a great move for you as well. You really knocked it out of the park with getting some rentals there, and maybe a little bit faster than you would have liked, and caused you a little bit of stress there. But I think in the end, it's all worked out really well for you. And, quite frankly, if it was easy, everybody could do it. It's the hard that makes it special. And that's part of what I like about it is not everybody can do this kind of stuff. Anybody's got the ability, there's no problem with that. But if they actually, sat down and put in the effort, absolutely get those, investments going, whether you like the stocks or Bitcoin or real estate. It doesn't really matter, whatever you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think this panel right here or this group right here kind of shows like we're all at different, I guess I would honestly say different age. Like Cody's, a lot younger than we are. I'm, turning 50 soon. And, John, I don't want to put your age out there, but, um,
Well, Marc, you're retiring next year at 38, right?
yes, that is the plan. That is the plan as of now. I'm just trying to figure out some logistics on that, but that is the plan. And then I can just goof around doing this stuff more often.
So it's really
Well,
no different for you then.
See, this shoulder injury was a test run.
well, you're turning 25 for the second time, so
Yeah, hey, it's a good way to look at it. See. Well, another thing about this, sorry, we went a little off topic, but going back to a little bit to the rent control main topic that we're going to talk about, do you think in some ways, if rent control is implemented in your market, it just allows you a different way to be probably focus on being a better operator? Like, I think you're very good at that, like trying to limit expenses or different costs and another way to improve as an operator.
I see a lot of opportunity just because of how a lot of my business acquaintances react when stuff like this happens. They're like, I'm putting my hands up. I quit. I'm going to a different state. Washington sucks. That's what they all say. So it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm not competing with you. Not that I was anyway. I mean, we were buying different types of properties, but the fact that they're doing it means there's other people doing it. So I'm happy. I mean, regulations do suck for ownership, but ultimately, like if you can weather the first little bit of the suck, it eventually gets passed on to tenants when nothing else gets built or units get cannibalized, kind of like the topic earlier. Well, should I just get rid of my washer dryer? And then you see the apartment shuffle. People will not have money anymore because they do that, and then the tenant base gets worse, and so they start stealing the stove from unit 24 to put it into unit 31, and then they take a fridge from 17 and put it in there, and now they have non-operable units that can't make money, and it just gets worse and worse. And that will create a lot of opportunity down the road as long as you can survive till you get down the road. You got to walk down the sidewalk to nowhere, right? That Justin put in.
Yeah. And then, so John, for you, like you're saying, rent control is not in your market yet, but does it help that you kind of own the asset class or the asset class that you're focusing on, like short-term rentals, where so like if someone was, or if they were to put in rent control in your market, it really wouldn't impact you, right, from your short-term rental side.
From the short-term rental side, no, rent control wouldn't be any issue with that. However, I do have long-term rentals that I manage for my family as well as my own. So from that standpoint, it absolutely would. But I'm not really worried about rent control. It's just another regulation or criteria that you've got to figure into your pro formas when you're buying stuff and making sure that it's going to not be an alligator. You can actually make a little money with it. You want to be able to make sure you're maintaining the property and being able to upgrade whatever needs to be fixed and, you know, uh, getting those good tenants so that you're not having as many issues.
It does. I will say it does make it harder though to get in. You do have to buy good deals. And my very first property I ever bought, I've owned it for now a little over 6 years, and my insurance went up about 400% in 1 year. If that happened on the first year, it would have gone to break even, and that would have been very tough. And if there was no way to get the rents up the way that I got them up, and granted, I did it over a 6 year period, so it's not like I was just jacking them crazy amounts right away. But if I had to, and then my taxes got reassessed, that would put it in a position where I'd have to self manage it. Like, all right, I guess I can't afford a manager anymore. That'd be the way that I'd have to get through that for a while, which is less than desirable.
Josh is asking, how explain how you use VR in your short-term rental, please. And part of this is also Josh has just gone under contract in a property on the coast, which they're looking to short-term rental, I believe. So hopefully Josh can give us more updates soon on that. But yeah, he's asking about using the VR goggles, John.
So I saw on Facebook somebody else doing this. They were painting some murals inside their property, and they use a program that's called Contour. And I went in there and basically made a logo that is got the background is transparent. It has to be square, and it has to be in a PNG. And you just email that to yourself so that you can bring that up in the VR goggles and pull it into the Contour program. And it basically uh, through different manipulations with the handles, you can lock it wherever you want. As far as you're going to be able to size it, you're going to be able to lock it in place, and then you basically just trace it out. Once you've got it traced, then you can paint it to however you like. And in my case, that was just a black and white type of thing, just 2D. So it wasn't super fancy, but I think it made a very good impact in the backyard. And I put a couple benches out there so people could do their little Instagram moments and things like that. So, tried to make it kind of a marketing type of thing for the property.
And you do have a video though, right, on your channel about you doing some of the work.
I do.
All
Yes.
right. So Josh, yeah, go check. I'll put the link to his channel again in the chat, but go check out some of his videos there. But Flavio's asking, he says, Cody, have you noticed that people are struggling with the deposit? I've been asking if I can do deposit on, oh, I've been asked, I think, if I can do deposit on payments.
If you took out the last three words of your first sentence, I'd say yes. Have you noticed people are struggling? Absolutely, people are struggling. It's really hard right now. What I've been told by my attorney is you legally have to accept a payment plan on the deposit, which kind of defeats the purpose. So I mean, I've done it on occasion, and it's been okay. They sign a payment plan. It is what it is. Most people are good people. Just most people are also struggling. So yeah, I've taken deposits on payments. However, there's a lot of programs out there: Goodwill, Hope Source, Housing Authority. Housing Authority is a little harder because there's a big wait list, but they can get their moving costs paid for. And so that's a discussion. If they ask about that, I'm like, yes, we can do a payment plan. However, have you talked with these guys? Because they'll actually pay your first month as well. And then you get it and the deposit, and it's paid by government program. So that's what I've done. But legally, what I've been told is you have to accept that. I think it's up to 6 months.
I've done payments on deposits as well, but I typically only do like a 3-month payment plan. I don't let them stretch it out very far. That way we make sure that it gets taken care of quickly and efficiently.
Chris Webb is saying, is the VR something that they can take photos with, even if it's not there? I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this.
Basically, I took AI, asked it to build something that I was looking for, and was able to put together a very nice logo using VR, or I mean AI, and you just tell it all the criteria you're looking for. Once you've got the image, you just load it into an email and pull it up in the program for VR. It locks it on the wall. You've got handles. You've got for gaming, just like anything else. You've got handles, and you're able to go through the different menu options in the program, and it'll rotate it, it'll stretch it, your pitch, your yaw, all those types of things are all able to be moved in with the VR. And once you've got it there, you just push a button and you lock it in place. Then you can move anywhere you want along that picture, and it stays locked where you need it.
I see Jason C. tuning in from Cody's channel. He says, Central Coast California here lawmakers are continuing to try and whittle away at Prop 13, which was put in place to protect property owners and keeping their property taxes at a manageable rate. Do you guys have any thoughts on that besides getting out of California? Which I tell it no.
All rich people are evil, and we should make it hard for them.
Yeah.
I don't do any business in California just because of all the tenant rights. They make it so difficult to actually get out a bad operator. So I refuse to do any business in California.
However, I will say there's people, I at least know of one person that the three of us know that is winning in California. So you can win in any market, but it's a game of time and patience and buying good deals.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one thing, right? I mean, in every market, someone is making money, right? So sometimes you just got to figure out ways how you're going to navigate it and connect with people that are doing it in that market, right? So I think I think Jen touched on it earlier. Jen and Kenny are in California. They do have properties in other markets. But at the same time, they want to stay in California, for other, life choices, right? But yeah, you just got to figure out, there are people that are making it work, and it just what makes sense for you, right? Not everyone can invest out of state. I don't think everyone has the backbone or the demeanor to handle investing out of state, right? So you may have to take smaller returns in the short run, but that's for you to sleep well at night, right? Because things are in your backyard in a sense.
And to be fair, lower return properties appreciate more. Yeah, lower return markets appreciate more.
Yeah, so I think that's like Dion likes to touch on, right? We don't want to get political, but bluer state policies probably have higher appreciation, home values, and whatnot, right? Because but at the same time, so that's why Dion likes to invest in what blue states, red counties, though. That's his ideal situation, right?
And I don't think it's so much about that. It's just about stability, right? Lower returns are provided with really stable assets and really stable core markets. And wherever it's just there's a stability factor, the returns are lower, and where the returns are lower, the prices are higher. So it's if you buy it in a lower return market and it continues to be stable over time, that will appreciate more percentage wise than an unstable market.
Well, like you were saying, Cody, about a lot of people wanting to, kind of give up in a higher cost area and changing their investments to maybe Midwest or something like that. That's a much less cost to get in type of situation. But when you look at those percentages, yeah, they look fantastic. But when you look at the actual number that they're getting for their cash flow, it might only be 50 or $100. It's hard to really maintain properties and have vacancies and things like that with that small of an amount of money that you're dealing with. Whereas in a higher cost area, if you're getting a much better return as far as, $500 or $600 a month, then you can deal with those things, even though the percentage amount is much, much lower.
To Josh's point, Josh says regulations suck, but look at what it has done to rents appreciation in places like New York. As a free market guy, I don't like the government overreach, but it can be profitable for those that navigate it. Yeah, I think I've even seen certain like Grant Cardone, right? That's one thing he also too, right? Like he kind of wants to invest in these markets because you have less competition to some extent, right? So people are trying to stay away from these markets because like the regulations and maybe the returns are slightly smaller in the beginning, but there are people that want to invest there because there is less competition. Nope, I don't see any questions right now. Anything else you guys wanna? I think we're about an hour in, so anything you guys want to wrap things up? Stuff you want to throw out there, John? Anything you want to final words you want to put out there?
No, I just very happy to be here. Very nice to finally meet you, Cody. I haven't actually had any FaceTime with you. We've messaged a few times back and forth, but it was very nice meeting you.
Likewise.
I did prepare him that he may think that Dave Ramsey was joining us today when you were on, so he knew that people think that you look like Dave Ramsey.
I thought I looked like Frank. What keeps going back and forth here?
That is well in that image that Frank created. You do look. I mean, he looks like he's using your picture for his logo. But yeah, yeah. If people don't know, Cody will be at the Vegas event in February. Speaking, I think he's kicking off the event. You're speaking day one, correct?
Day
Yep.
one, first speaker.
All right, that's gonna be nice. John has been there. Oh no, you only went there last year, right? Not year or
Yes.
this year, I should say. So John's also gonna be there. Cody's gonna be there. A lot of people in the chat, I believe. I think for the most part, everyone's gonna be there. So it's gonna be a fun time. So
I'll
if you
be working
haven't,
the front desk with Jen again.
are you gonna? Oh, good luck with that. But but it's gonna be a fun event. So if you haven't grabbed your tickets, definitely I recommend you picking up your tickets. It's a great place to network and meet people like Cody Davis in person. John Litz. You can maybe get some information on short-term rentals, and maybe you can bring your VR goggle. I don't know, show people what you're doing with it. I'm not sure. People may want some
That would be fun.
hands-on,
Sure.
right? And then yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, same time with Brandon Potts. And everyone, thanks for tuning in and have a great rest of the day.